All right, so we are here again with our wonderful podcast. Welcome to Power Up's Ask a Health or Fitness Expert podcast, where we have a variety of guests that volunteer to share their love of health and fitness, products or services that are all good for us. A quick disclosure, this podcast contains our personal tips, advice, suggestions, and opinions. Our honorary guest today is Jake Weeks. Yay!
Honorary, that's nice. Thanks.
Yeah! We are going to talk today about protein supplementing, right? Is that what we're going to talk about today, Jake?
I think so. It's a popular question, probably one of the most popular questions that I get as a personal trainer, just people that are curious about fitness is should they take a protein shake? And I know a lot of people who, when they first start working out, it's one of the first things they start doing. And I'll be honest, like my opinion about it has changed quite a bit over the last several years. At first, I thought it was meant for some people who were, bodybuilder types that are trying to put on muscle. I think the biggest thing I saw was people would like add it to their existing food regimen instead of replace something that they're eating with it. And so for a lot of people trying to lose weight, that wasn't going to be helpful. And a lot of personal training clients aren't just trying to put on muscle, they're trying to lose weight too. So I wouldn't really recommend protein shakes to my clients, unless they definitely would take out something else that they were eating, especially some unhealthy. But diving back into the research over the last few years, it's important for everybody probably to be taking protein shakes, whether you work out, whether you're an athlete or not. And that's just because the body requires so much protein to build. In fact, I mean, that's what we're made of is proteins. You have to have it. And studies have come out recently that say older people need it even more, than the young athlete who's trying to grow and get stronger. Older populations need it to prevent the loss and to keep their ligaments and tendons and muscles strong so they don't break bones when they fall and things. So if anything, the less active and the older you get, the more inclined you should be able to take protein, which is kind of counterintuitive. There's a lot of debate about what types, when. My general advice is based on the research that I've come across. It doesn't really matter that much when. I think for the most high performing athletes, there's a slight advantage to taking it at certain times. But the most important thing is that you just get your allotment during the day. And for most people, they recommend about a gram per kilogram of body weight. The science suggests that you can't go too much more than that. Your body can only process so much protein. So unless you're an elite bodybuilder, you really shouldn't try to go much more than that. And if you go less than that, you're not getting the full amount that your body needs to stay as strong as it could. So you'll lose muscle over time. So I try to take protein regularly. It's one of the supplements I use regularly. I did for a while take whey protein. For a long time, the science suggested that's the best for performance, and that's because it has a particular amino acid that they think is mostly connected to like the muscular gains. Whey protein comes from cow's milk and from the cheese making process. So for me personally, I recommend my clients, unless you're like really going for the absolute most performance and you're a high level athlete, to use a vegetable source, a plant source of protein. And there are complete plant sources of protein like hemp and pea protein and quinoa. And there's other ones too, but hemp and pea are really popular, really cheap. And one of the biggest advantages to those is that they're a lot easier on the gastrointestinal tract. So it's a lot more practical for people to actually take it regularly. I think at a minimum, people should probably take like at least 20 grams of supplemental protein because people do get protein throughout their daily diet. They don't need to get all their protein through shakes, but I think at a very minimum, 20 grams of protein in one shake and maybe split that up into two shakes. So you do a 20-gram shake twice a day or something like that. I think that's a good general recommendation. And most people will get through their food the rest of the protein needed. But that's what I like to recommend for most of my clients now who are trying to build muscle and really improve their performance that aren't necessarily just trying to lose fat as fast as possible. What about you? You're a bodybuilder. You must take protein. Do you cycle it? Do you just take a consistent amount? What kind do you take?
So protein is the magic weight loss pill. It really is. It really is. And I do believe, you hit on some great points. Food first, hands down. However, there is a point in time that I believe in the research that I've done and the education that I have that right after you work out, you've got to refeed. There's a certain type of protein that I consume that I absolutely love because of the quality. A lot of the fats and the carbohydrates are removed. It is easy to digest because of the processing it's gone through. It's a low temperature process because you're right. It is a whey protein, but it is dehydrated at a low temperature versus a high temperature. Or a lot of those box store proteins are dehydrated through a chemical process. And the reason why they use high temperature or chemical processing is because they're pumping out mass quantities. They're wanting to produce at a higher volume to make more sales, to produce more. They're actually adding additives that are also very harmful and actually cancer forming in some of these proteins. So knowing a good high quality protein powder is key. But again, having a fast digesting protein post workout within 20 minutes and some glycogen is something that I truly, truly believe is something that you can't replicate with food. So I choose Formula One, which is a First Form product. I have actually gone on vacation or went places for 1, 2, 3 weeks and not taken my Formula One because of weight or room or whatever my excuse is. And it's a significant feeling the next day difference. So by having that protein right away after working out, it allows my body to repair faster and recover faster and have less soreness and less downtime. But yeah, it doesn't give you any of the gas, the bloat that's associated with those low quality proteins. And honestly, if you are getting gas and bloat and thinking that, oh, this is normal, this is what should happen, and laughing about it, oh, I have the protein farts or whatever. Reality is it's doing more damage to your body than good. Your body's actually rejecting it. It's pushing it through your body, and it's damaging your body. And a long-term use of that is actually very harmful. So hands down, choosing the right amount of protein is important. I do believe 1 gram per body pound is appropriate. I also do believe having it every feeding should be 15 to 30 grams of protein, no more than that, because you're right, it is hard on your kidneys, it's hard on your body. And it's really just kind of a waste if you go greater than 30 grams in a feed. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things I notice with my clients that I work with through my health coaching is they come to me and they're consuming very little protein actually. They are eating whatever. They're eating a lot of carbs or a lot of fats or a lot of, whatever quick, easy food that really doesn't have high quality lean protein in it. So yes, I do believe that post-workout protein is essential. It's something that everybody should be doing if they're doing any kind of resistance training. Now, if you're just doing yoga or maybe just, going for a quick run, it might not be necessary, but any sort of resistance training, you do definitely need to refeed your body with the proper amount of protein, high quality, and glycogen. That's me. That's how I feel. But there is, a time of day too, where people, or my clients especially, are too busy to have a whole meal, or, a quality meal that might have some lean meats and some greens. So in that situation, I think supplementing with a shake is good, but be very cautious and do that only if you have to, only if you're not prepared, only if it's not eating, which is worse, or choosing a wrong type of food. A protein shake would be great for a supplement, but these protein bars and all these supplements that are at these box stores have all these additives and all these things in them that keep a long shelf life and dyes and all these other things that are just really not good for us. So, hands down, real food first, but post-workout, get with me, contact me. I'd love to educate you a little bit more about proper protein after post-workout.
So that's something I'd like to address because that's really popular in the bodybuilding community. And from the studies that I've looked at, and the people that I like to follow in this industry, by the way, are guys like Mike Israetel, Brad Schoenfield, Alan Aragon. Whenever I look into research, it seems like these are the guys that are putting out studies that are being quoted, or they're the guys that know how to curate these studies and they teach it to other people, so they have to. From the studies I've seen, for the best performance athletes, especially if you're like in the middle of, an event like a hoop fest or a Tour de France or something, you want to get that energy right back in your body afterwards. It will give you the max benefit in preparing your body to be ready for the next event and protein synthesis. But they've tried to answer this question because it's so popular in the bodybuilding community. And from the studies that I've seen, they've concluded that for the vast majority of people, it doesn't make any difference. That the total amount of protein that you take in during the day by far is the decisive factor, and taking it in a window right afterwards isn't nearly as important as the bodybuilding community basically has made it out to be for the last 10 or 20 years, which is just, to me, it's interesting. And there's a lot of debate between bro science versus actual science, so I think, like, for me, I used to lift 6 days a week when I was in my 20s, and I would always worry about getting that food. But then after coming across that research, it's not that important to me. I'll just stick with my normal diet plan, just to suit my overall energy needs. And, maybe I'll give up 1% of gains for that workout or something, but my life is more convenient and I'm not disrupting my schedule. And so for people to worry about those little things, it shouldn't be as important as just get your protein. And you said another thing that was interesting to me. You said 1 gram per pound of body weight. So you basically believe that they should have twice as much basically as I've given. And I think there is a big range there. And I think you're giving kind of the, I'm sick and I need to heal, or I'm injured, or I'm an elite bodybuilder amount versus,
not really,
versus like a normal person.
Not really. I mean, I feel like something that I really stress with my clients is keeping your blood sugar levels level throughout the day. It provides a lot more energy at the end of the day. That's a big thing to me, is keeping your blood sugar levels consistent.
Well, this is something that's dangerous about protein that a lot of people don't understand, especially whey protein, is it spikes your insulin as much or more than sugar. And so if you did take protein like that much, especially what you're talking about, where to get it all, you'd have to take it, to have your body absorb it, you'd have to take it almost every hour or two, because you have to take 20 grams. Let's say that you had to take 160 grams. That'd be every 8 hours. So that'd be 20 grams every 2 hours. So that's a lot of insulin flooding your body. And what could happen over time is that your body becomes insulin resistant. So there's a balance between eating what's best for performance in a sport, in an athletic event, in the moment in your young life, versus eating for longevity. And I think if to get as much protein as you're talking about and to have your body absorb it, you'd have to be like constantly eating. And for me personally, like having the flood of insulin in my body isn't worth it. And I can tell you, when I did try to overtake protein, or at least for what I thought was overtake protein, after a while, my energy was not good. I was eating all through the day and my energy would just spike and I'd feel the blood sugar. And that's what made me really dive into the research about when you should take it, how much you should take, how much your body can absorb it, the insulin resistance. And so it's a really fine balance. And so different strokes for different folks. I think for you and for athletes like you who are a top level bodybuilder, then you should be in that high end of the range. For someone who's just trying to lose weight or something, I think the most common recommendation by far out there in the professional community is 1 per kilogram of body weight. And that's what the guys that I quoted generally recommend to their clients, but they will go as high as you said, per 1 pound for the most elite athletes, and maybe less for people trying to lose weight or something. But
probably about every 6 months, I have a glucose monitor, and I go through a period of a couple of weeks monitoring my glucose levels. Because insulin is very important to me. I have the genetic marker to be predisposed to type 2 diabetes. So it is really important to me to have my blood sugars at a level that's consistent throughout the day. I do find that I have way more energy at the end of the day, especially around the 2 or 3 o'clock area, if I do have a consistent feedings that are protein fed. But my blood sugar levels are incredible. They're immaculate. They're not
they just
spiking.
stay the same throughout the day when you do that. That's pretty interesting. I'd like to maybe we could have a discussion about that specifically, because for you, it sounds like that works for you. For me, I can feel the energy difference. And I feel like I function better with an intermittent fasting more approach, where I kind of try and get all my nutrients in a smaller window instead of spread them out. So that's interesting. It's something we should definitely explore. And like I said, and you've said many times, different strokes for different folks, whatever really helps you feel the best and you see the most performance, that's what's best for you. There's not a one size fits all for everybody in this world, not even close.
And I think that this relates to my clients that are in the fat burning arena. They're ones that are wanting to burn fat. I do believe it is important to protect your muscles. And in order to protect your muscles, you have to feed your body protein on a consistent basis. Just like if you don't consume calcium filled foods, what does your body do? It'll attack your body. It will find the calcium in your body. It'll go after your bones. Same with protein. In order to stay in that fat burning zone where you want to stay anabolic, you want to continually feed your body appropriate amount of protein throughout the day. And for me, I get up at 5:30. That's my first feeding, and I eat all the way up till 8:30 at night. So, I have a longer span of time than 8 hours. So I do consistently eat every two to 3 hours. But it's just my lifestyle. It is what I do, and it's small meals, and it's not hard. It's not difficult. So for me to get in the appropriate amount of protein is not difficult at all. And the amount of protein is based on your ideal weight. So, if you're someone that's maybe 250 pounds and your goal weight is 180 pounds, you're not consuming 250 grams of protein a day, it would be the 180. So, I do believe that protein is the magic pill for weight loss. I see it over and over and over again in my clients. And
one big advantage it has, besides like replacing actual calories that people take in, is it satiates hunger. Like you will be less hungry when you have protein. Right. And that's a big advantage that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Right. And I think that quality on the protein is just like, an analogy of makeup. You don't go to Walgreens and get your makeup. If you know anything about makeup, you will go and get, the natural products, the products that have high quality ingredients in it. Or another analogy would be, if you are a carpenter or a professional builder of any sort, you're not going to go get your tools at, I don't know, Kmart. You're going to go get your tools at a place that has, high quality tools. So finding the proper quality is essential. I'm really big on the whey because it does have all the amino acids necessary to rebuild, repair your muscles appropriately. Yes, there are proteins out there. In fact, First Form has one that is a blended protein that is, I believe it's brown rice and pea protein. And it does have the complete protein source, but it's not the same. Reality is the best quality is finding one that does have the microfiltration and correctly processed in the form of low temperature process. Because, if you think about it, if you take a chicken breast and you throw it on a grill at 1,000 degrees, it's going to turn it into a charcoal brisket. Are you gonna eat that? Oh, maybe you might. It's gonna be awful. It's gonna be terrible, but your body's not gonna identify it as protein anymore. Where if you cook the chicken breast in like a crock pot over several hours and it's tender, it's juicy, it's lovely, and you eat it, your body's gonna recognize it as a protein source and absorb it at a better rate. Same sort of thing applies to your protein powders out there. Going to these box stores and getting it because it's cheap, you're really probably think you're getting protein, but you're not. So
well, don't be lured into the trap of thinking you have to buy brand name or you have to buy it expensively, because at Walmart they've got some great stuff. And the most important thing is you just read the ingredient labels and know what the heck you're looking at. And if it sounds like unpronounceable or something you don't know, stay away. But even at Walmart and some of these stores, you said Kmart earlier. What's that? Just kidding.
Oh, for makeup. That was my analogy on makeup.
I know you got good analogies today. Yeah. So just read the ingredient labels, and whether it's a protein bar or something, there's good ones and bad ones. Just read the labels and try to understand the difference between whey and the other types. Whey is animal-based. The other types are plant-based. So if that's important to you, you should go with hemp or pea protein.
Yeah, I think casein is probably one of the lowest grades. It's kind of the leftovers of the.
But there's interesting study because it's like longer lasting, so like there's some studies that maybe before bedtime, like it's a good time to take some casein basically because it stays in your system longer. So there's a time and place for all this stuff. The most important thing is that you just start counting your protein. Probably to the people watching and listening, start counting your protein, shoot for that at least a gram per kilogram, which divide your weight by 2 basically. And that's how many grams you should get. All right. And then you can multiply that by 4 to get calories. I know that's too much math for most people, but start there and just increase the amount of protein, especially if you're an athlete who's trying to perform, or if you're just older and worried about your bones not being as strong, your ligaments. It's really important. Or like Katherine said many times, if you're trying to lose weight, because it will satiate hunger and you can replace an unhealthier part of your day's food habits with it or something, I think is a good start.
But food first always, except for post-workout, in my opinion. But wow, this was
hey, if you
great.
could get some organ meats, and some high quality carbs, that would be just as good as any synthesized powder, I promise you. But of course, that's a little harder to do.
Get some liver and liver and onions and heart. Yeah.
They've done studies. The organ meats are like the most dense, concentrated nutrients on planet Earth, so we'll have a discussion about that too. And then maybe about eating for longevity versus performance, maybe about, I'd like to know how other people's glucose meters and how that stacks up. I'd like to do some research into that and just see if I'm different or you're different, or if, what the most people experience as far as that. So
yeah, it's important to know, test it right when you wake up, so in your fasted state, and then tracking it, and then actually go and consume something with high sugar purposefully and see how your body responds.
That's a good idea. Maybe I'll experiment with.
Yeah, they're not cheap. Well, the monitors aren't too bad. You can get a monitor for like $20-$30, no problem, anywhere at Walgreens or Amazon. It's the tabs that get pretty expensive. So you're usually going to drop about $100. And they do expire. So make sure, so every time I do this, I have to go get new tabs. Your health insurance will sometimes cover those type of things, but it has to be medically prescribed. So maybe next time you go to the doctor, say, hey, I'd really like to check my glucose levels. I want to get a monitor. Is there any way that you can, give me a prescription for it? And you can probably get your insurance company to cover it. So there's ways to do it. And all you got to simply say is, I'm really worried. I'm starting to feel kind of dizzy during the day, and I'd really like to kind of be informed. And it's super easy. The first time you do it, it's kind of scary. You got to stab yourself basically in the finger, and with the little tool, it comes with the monitor. So it's real easy. And then I do it with my whole household, like my whole family. We test.
I changed my mind. I'm just going to do subjective feelings.
No, it's really, really good. And the reason why I know is I had a high extreme level of gestation diabetes with my second pregnancy. In fact, I was on 2 forms of insulin. In the morning, I had to take an insulin, inject myself with a needle, which I'm terrified of needles, with an insulin that kept my glucose levels, my blood sugar levels somewhat stable throughout the day. And then every time I ate, I had to inject myself with the appropriate amount to offset whatever the foods I was eating. So this went on for several months. So I really got to know and understand. I went to a dietitian. I went through this whole long process and really was forced to understand the body and how sugars and glucose and
That's
carbs.
cool. It's something I'd like to explore, because like I said, I was taking all this protein thinking that the way you were describing how you take protein is actually the best way to do it. But like I said, my energy level just wasn't the same. And I was surprised by that. And so I could feel my blood sugar spike and rise and my insulin go up. So I'd like to actually maybe just follow up with the glucose meter at some point and see, if it's my perception or if there's actually a rise and fall in the glucose in my body. And I don't know if there's a way if that measures insulin too or whatever, but we're digressing, I suppose.
Yeah, but no, it's a glucose monitor is pretty cool. In fact, actually, it is a great way if you really want to hone in your weight loss and really understand your weight loss. You can actually use a glucose meter to stay in that anabolic range.
Great advice, actually.
You could really,
advice. Everyone could probably benefit from monitoring their glucose. Honestly, it's a great point.
Yeah, be informed, understand. I mean, granted, I have felt like my glucose was either really low, bottomed out, or really high, and checked it, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I thought.
That's what I'm wondering, if it can measure insulin too, and then if you can compare when my insulin's high versus low with my glucose, then how does this make me feel? Because it's a balance, because I know insulin makes you feel ways too. It's not just the glucose, so But that's stuff that science is really working hard to figure out right now.
Yeah.
Not that easy.
This was a great talk. I feel like we both learned a little bit about different things, but how would somebody get a hold of you, Jake?
fitandhappyclub.com. Please give me a call. Free assessments, 2 free sessions, free gait and postural assessment. I'll talk with you about your food or whatever else we can do, all for free.
Yeah. So I will definitely put the links below, so that way they're easy to access. And and reach Jake. So, well, this has been a great conversation. As always, I enjoy it every week, chatting with you, discussing different topics that, that we have, but, we can go on forever. Right?
That's
Yeah.
right. We should. Just kidding. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Have a great
You're welcome.
weekend.
You too.